All right, my name is Haley Bilberry, and I am the gifted specialist here at Miller Elementary.
Okay. The first question is, how well prepared do you feel to teach ELLs?
Not, not. We were, so when I started, you didn't have to be ESL certified or anything. And then I think a year, maybe 2 years after I started teaching, the district required it. So everybody was like having to take a class and then go take the test like the next day. So it was like a 8-hour day. You would get all the information and then go take the test. And we were all like, so I I can get by with my students that are ELLs, but most of ours have kind of graduated out of that program by the time I get them in GT or whatever. So it hasn't been that awful, but if they were to come in and be like full blown ELL right now, I would be like, I don't know, sorry. I'd have to read my whole book, I think.
Did you complete a traditional program or alternative certification?
For just my teaching certification?
Yeah.
I went through tech and did my post-bac, so it was like, it wasn't alternative really, but it wasn't like, I didn't go through blocks and stuff like that. We did everything in 2 years, so, and I student taught for a semester.
What can the school or district do to help you meet the needs of ELLs?
Provide resources, which that is going to be said for anything. You from gifted to ELLs to SPED to kids struggling in math. We just need more resources because I can be really good at one thing. I can teach gifted kids all day long, but at schools that don't have a gifted program, those teachers have to do it in their class, and they're like, we don't know what to do. So same thing. There's schools that have like ELL programs built in, and they have great resources and they're bilingual and all this stuff. But if they come to Miller, we would all be like, we don't know. So resources, for sure.
In your opinion, what are the characteristics of effective ELL programs?
That's tough because I don't know that I've seen one, honestly, and not that there aren't any out there. I just haven't seen them, but I feel like teachers who are well equipped to work with ELLs are necessary. I feel like taking a 1-day course and then like studying that night and then taking the certification test the next day does not make me like well prepared. But there are great programs in our district where kids are thriving and they're able to, and there's a lot of bilingual programs in Lubbock ISD, even in the elementary level, and I think that's awesome. But we have kids coming from all sorts of, not just Spanish-speaking homes, and so having those resources available and making sure those teachers are well prepared to work with them, I think is what makes it the most successful.
How many languages are represented in your classroom?
Ooh. In my 5th grade group, there's 3. But I bet most of mine are English speakers because I have a majority of white kids. I have a lot of Hispanic who are bilingual and can speak both. Chinese, a language that I couldn't tell you what it is, from India. I had a family, they did a missionary trip and they were gone for a year and lived in India, so they can speak that language that I sadly don't know what it is. My kids will tell you that they're bilingual because they can say 3 words in French, but so I guess 4.
Mm-hmm. Sweet. In what ways are you providing effective instruction for ELLs?
Okay, I have a 5th grader who came to us when she was in 2nd grade, like no English, 0. And still, she's much better now, can speak very fluently. But even when I give them like a document to read or something, if it's a word that she doesn't understand, I just have to change my mindset of like, she's not going to be as high as all of my English speaking kids when it comes to reading and comprehending, because these words are literally foreign to her. So working with her, my expectations are just different. When we're writing, my expectations are different. They're not lower by any means. I still have high expectations for her. She knows what she has to do in order to make a 100 or pass things in my class. But my expectation is just a little different because I know she's not going to be able to, change verbs and stuff like that the way that we do because it just doesn't come fluent to her. So just changing our expectations is something that I've had to do with her for sure.
Sweet. How do you communicate with parents who do not speak English?
To be honest, through their child. And that's so funny because last year in fourth grade, so I have my kids every year as long as they're gifted, which they're always from now until forever after we test them. So last year in fourth grade, during the spring semester, we celebrated Chinese New Year. We were studying ancient China, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, this is like my thing," And so we started talking about we were gonna, cook rice and all this stuff and celebrate. And she was like, "Oh no, we're not having rice." And I was like, "Well, that's about all I can cook." So, downstairs in our little lounge area, and she was like, "Oh no, I'm telling my parents." She was like, "I'll tell them. Don't worry about it. I'll tell them." And they provided a buffet up here of food for my kids to eat. So, especially all of my Chinese students are high academic students and very responsible. So I can say, "Hey, tell your parents to check their email." I send them an email, tell them to check their email and look for one for me. And the next day, it's done. So I communicate a lot through the child when it comes to those that don't speak English.
Sweet. And then the last question is, I will be in my own classroom next fall. What recommendations do you have to help me prepare to teach ELLs?
Patience. With yourself and with your student. And that goes for teaching any kind of student, ELL, GT, SPED, anything. I think we've got to give ourselves a little bit of grace because we need to extend it to them as well, because obviously things are going to be much harder. So my recommendation is a lot like what I said earlier, just change your expectation for them a little bit. It doesn't have to be lower, it just has to be different, and because things are going to look different. What the work that they produce and the writing that they produce and how they comprehend, it's just going to look different. So you just got to be patient with them and extend grace when it comes to that.
Sweet.
For sure.
Thank you.
Yes.